to another review of Life and Chess. This is for the bold and beautiful June 20th, 2025. Okay, so first things first, let me know your thoughts on this new episode down below. Look, I seen the end of the preview now. I was so stuck on the Taylor proposing thing. Look, I forgot to write down the rest of the stuff. I said, I know you lying. I said, I know doggone well you lying. I said, don't tell me this lady is over here proposing to this coward. Hold on, wait. I said, why they got her proposing to this man? What the world going on around here? I said, now I get it. We are living in a time where that's happening more and more. But in this case, she don't need to be proposing to him. She need to be breaking up with him. Look, I was just talking about that. I said, she needs to be breaking up with him. And they got her proposing next week. I said, what the world? Why is she proposing to Ridge? She had a ring out. What did she say? I want you to be my husband. I said, no, you lying. I said, no, Taylor. No, Taylor, don't do it. I said, why do they got this lady doing that? I don't know, y'all. How do y'all feel about that? Because I know there's some people who want Ridge and Taylor to be together. So for the fans that want Taylor and Ridge to be together, how do y'all feel about her proposing to Ridge? Do y'all think that he's going to say yes? And if he doesn't say yes, what do you think, or why do y'all think that is? Let me know down below. But yeah, hey, y'all. Let me know y'all thoughts down below. So first we're going to start with Taylor and Brooke. So Brooke ends up stopping by, walking in folks' house again. She was bringing some paperwork for Eric. Taylor ends up telling her that he's not here. Him and Donna went somewhere. So then Taylor ends up mentioning Nick. And she was just excited, smiling and stuff. They both were smiling and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is going good. But then Taylor started talking about, excuse me. Taylor brought up Nick and her reuniting or whatever. And they were just going back and forth about Ridge, and Brooke told her that Ridge was basically jealous, and she was like, are you trying to tell me that Ridge was jealous? I said, are you trying to tell us that you didn't see that he was jealous? What he just told you yesterday? What did he tell her yesterday, y'all? I forgot already. I forgot. He told her something. Oh, when she implied that Nick and Brooke was... excuse me, that Nick and Brooke were finding their way back to each other. He talking about something. No, that's not what's happening and all this other stuff. Then I'm glad Steffi told him that he's sending the wrong message, or the right message anyways, to her mama. I said, that's right, defend your mama. But she still ain't doing enough good job. She should have been telling her mama to stay away. It's all her fault. No. But yeah, I was like, now you want to tell him. Y'all knew what it was. I don't understand why everybody acting so shocked. And that's basically what they were doing on today's episode, acting shocked. Taylor was acting shocked when Brooks implied that Ridge was jealous. Steffi, he acted shocked to hear him say, I said, why would you tell your daughter that? I said, that ain't make no sense. I was like, don't tell her that. I said, you know she was going to say something. She was like, why do you care? But yeah, Taylor and Brooke, like I said, they was talking about Nick and Brooke getting together and stuff like that. Brooke ends up mentioning that basically Ridge was jealous. He ended up telling her to stay away from Nick or whatever. And they was just talking about that. And let me see. Let me make sure. Let me see. It was something else. Taylor said it's the right time for Nick to pursue Brooke or whatever. And she was like, how so? And then that's when she ends up mentioning it. About him being jealous and stuff like that. Because Taylor was happy about it. She was happy about it. But, excuse me, Brooke was saying how Ridge is not. And Taylor had this look on her face. And I said, so what about that situation led her to decide that she want to propose to this man? I said, don't propose to him. Look, I'm on that. I didn't even get to write down the rest of the notes for the spoilers or whatever, because she got this doggone ring. I want to know how Nick gonna find out, though. Is he gonna be right there or what? I don't know. Look like they're gonna be outside, maybe at El Giardino or whatever the name of the restaurant is. Hold on, y'all. But yeah, it was something else. Oh, Nick is telling Brooke about it. She was like, what did Ridge say? And I was like, yeah, he probably gonna say yes. He probably gonna say yes, even though we all know what he really wants, or who he really wants right now. Right now, he want both of them. I told y'all, he want both of them. That has been proven way too many times for them to sit up here and act like they don't know what's what. But yeah, I said this was gonna lead her to walk away. I thought she was gonna end up trying to make him jealous at first. But yeah, that's how that happened with Taylor and Brooke. With Carter, Steffi, Ridge, they was in the office. Steffi was just talking to Carter and Ridge about the perfume line and bringing Daphne back. That's what they were talking about. Why Carter decided to talk about some doggone reinstating hope for the future? I said, you lucky she got a job at all. I said, you lucky you got a job at all, because you was in it too. He already talking about some hope for the future, and he was just, I don't want to say he was being mean. Not mean. What's a good way to say it? I don't know. Either way it go, his voice was deepening and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, you lucky you working there at all. After what y'all did, they too nice about it anyway, because both of them would have had to go. Both of them would have had to go. What they thought this was. But he kept on going on and on. I said, she asking you about the perfume line, about bringing Daphne back. She's not talking about hope for the future right now. But they was like, they getting closer to making a decision or whatever, but they haven't made one yet. She ends up telling Carter to try to talk to her to get her to see, because that was his whole thing. He was like, can you understand why she doesn't want Daphne back? And they was basically trying to tell him that it's not up to y'all, it's our call or whatever. So after he left, that's when Steffi started trying to talk to Ridge, and he was zoned out. She was like, what's going on? What's on your mind? Because, he wasn't paying attention. So he ended up telling her about Brooke and Nick, telling my son I walked in on them. And she thought that he was saying that he walked in on them, doing the do or whatever. She said, well, we are talking about Brooke. I said, true that. I said, true that. Hold on, what they say? She said, well, we are talking about Brooke or whatever. So then he just going on and on, talking about his half-brother back and stuff like that. She was like, she hasn't heard that name in a long time or whatever. And I was like, dude, you don't do it. I said, don't do it. Steffi picked up on the real fast. But yeah, she ends up telling him, like, you saying that like you care and stuff like that. He was like, of course I care. Of course I always care about Brooke and all this other stuff. And she was like, tell me, I think he said something about you starting to sound like your mom. And she was like, tell me you didn't tell mom this. And she asked him, how did he say it? And he told her. And she was like, what type of message is that sending to Taylor or whatever? I said, exactly. That's why you shouldn't have sit up here and encourage them to be together, because you knew what was going on. So this man up here, he keep downplaying it. I was like, have he even heard himself say it? Like, don't go around telling people that. I said, all it took for another man to pop up in the picture, and he already gone. I said, Taylor know it too. I was like, see, no, they did it all wrong. They should have had somebody, because ain't no way he keep playing in her face like this, and they got her proposing next week. Now, we haven't seen the episode, because y'all know sometimes they just be joining clips together to make us think one thing. We just got to wait to see. Because another thing that they show is that Luna and Will going to be over here kissing or whatever. And I was like, how we go? Now, what going on around here? What going on around here? I said, how we go from her trying to allegedly take Hayes to now her and Will in the office making out and stuff? Somebody, I think they were saying something about maybe Luna's dreaming or something. I mean, she is a psychopath, so maybe she is hallucinating or whatever they call it. But yeah, what else? Let's see. All right, says Steffi ends up telling Ridge he sounds jealous. And I said, okay, Steffi, tell him what message is that sending to Taylor. And they got her proposing next week. Wait, what, y'all seen that? I said, no, doggone well. But yeah, I said, well, that's what's going to lead Brooke to go and give Nick a chance. I guess that's why they're going to be out of town or wherever they're going to be. What else? I think the last thing, Deacon Hope Carter. Let me write Carter's name down because I forgot. Deacon was asking Hope if she's sure about marrying Carter. He had already ran it by Deacon before he proposed or whatever. But he was just trying to make sure she was sure that she wanted to do this. Still talking about she needs to be sure. What else did he say to her? I think he wanted him to come there, and he did. He was just expressing his concerns. Hope tells Deacon that Carter's a good man. That's when he stops by, and they end up talking. They end up shaking hands, though, y'all. So right now, they cool. But I think Hope's still worried about the whole Daphne situation, though. Do y'all think she coming back? Let me know. But yeah, I think that was everything. Let me make sure, though. I already talked about Taylor proposing. I already talked about Luna. Did they show something else in that clip? I don't know. Let me see. Let me scan this right fast. Steffi asks why Ridge care. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it, y'all. Let me know y'all thoughts down below. Stay tuned for the next review. Until next time, deuces, hair girls today.